As protests in Minnesota continue to intensify over federal immigration enforcement, the Trump administration is escalating its feud with some of the state's top Democrats. The Justice Department has launched criminal probes into Governor Tim Walz and Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey, accusing them of obstructing federal law enforcement officers. Today, President Trump's Deputy Attorney General is defending the investigations.
President Trump has promised to keep the American people safe. And the fact that the local law enforcement, because their leadership is not doing their jobs, there may come a time when the president has to order that. And we support him. The Attorney General supports him because we have to keep the citizens safe.
All right, here with us now to discuss former federal prosecutor and president of West Coast Trial Lawyers, Neama Rahmani. Neama, great to see you. So I want to get your reaction to these investigations.
Fred, thanks for having me. My reaction is this is a dangerous escalation because we can't have our federal government investigating mayors, governors simply because of policy disagreements. For there to be obstruction, we need an actual act more than just the speech condemning ICE or saying it's not a good idea for those agents to be in Minneapolis and other major metropolitan cities.
So the Minneapolis Mayor, Jacob Frey, says he has not received a subpoena or any notice about the investigation. And he also says he's not aware of any specific allegations. So if this investigation is coming, how would he be informed?
Well, he would be informed by either receiving a grand jury subpoena like Powell did, or a grand jury indictment and an arrest warrant. Now, I don't think the Department of Justice would be able to get an indictment in a case like this. I don't think grand jurors would return one. And if they did, in the unlikely event, I don't think they could ever get a conviction in a case like this. This is more political saber rattling than anything, but this is not the use of the Department of Justice. This is not what it's there for, to go after one's political opponents. And we've seen it time and time again with this DOJ, that they're going after individuals simply because they're enemies of the president or they're taking a view that's adverse to the president. That is not the role of the DOJ, and that's a big problem.
Over the last week, President Trump has repeatedly threatened to send U.S. troops into Minnesota using the Insurrection Act. What exactly would this allow him to do, and how could he use it?
So the Insurrection Act would be another escalation, Fred. And we've seen the president federalize the National Guard here in my hometown of Los Angeles last year. But the Insurrection Act is different. It allows the president to call up active duty military. And those military personnel, those men and women, can engage in law enforcement, actually arrest people. So this isn't just bringing up the guard to protect federal agents or property. This is using the military for civilian law enforcement. Now, typically that's not allowed under federal law, under the Posse Comitatus Act. But if there is an inability by the president to either enforce federal law or protect constitutional rights, this can be used. But it certainly hasn't been used in quite some time. The last time, again, dating back to the early 90s in Los Angeles for the LA riots.
And like in Los Angeles recently, when Trump tried to, send military troops into Los Angeles, the court struck that down. But then how would you compare that potential use in Minneapolis to what was attempted in Los Angeles? I mean, do you expect the courts to react in a similar fashion or get involved, or because the Insurrection Act would be a tool that the president wants to use, this might roll out differently?
I do expect Minnesota and other states to file and litigate this. I do think the president has the upper hand here if indeed there is lawlessness and riots. I don't think we've reached that point yet. Courts have historically been hesitant to second guess the president and the executive branch. They deem this to be a political question. Even if a district judge were to grant some sort of restraining order or an injunction, I would be surprised if the circuit courts, and certainly the Supreme Court, they've been very deferential when it comes to this. Again, I think it's a bad idea. I don't think this is why men and women join the military. They want to fight our enemies abroad as opposed to engage in this type of law enforcement here in the United States. Hopefully the temperature cools down and everything de-escalates, because I think this is, again, another bad idea, Fred.
All right. Neama Rahmani, always great to see you. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Fred. Great seeing you too.